Hi, Aries, and welcome to our September 2021 conversation. The word that came up for me when it came to Aries was boundaries. One of my favorite topics, and one that I'm still working on being good at, honestly. And here's the thing, I feel like with Aries, it's the caricature is that you all are like very clear, very direct, great at boundaries. That's how like I would on the surface be like, "Oh yeah, you know." However, I think your little secret, my Aries friends, is that deep down you want to be doing it all. You want to be on top of it. You want to be um like extending your energy everywhere all the time, and that actually can end up resulting in some disordered boundaries. And I'm sure many of you have found that where you've burnt yourselves out, where you've overgiven your energy, where you've felt like you could do it all and you could take it all on your shoulders, and then found out that, like, wow, why do I feel so terrible all the time? Like, and that can happen in work, that can happen in family dynamics where you feel like you're the one who can just be the go getter, the starter, the fixer. And this topic is coming up because we're going to have a ton of energy in Libra this month, and it will be the beginning of Libra season on the equinox, the 22nd. This is a time of rebalancing and looking at your boundaries with others. And once again, it's not just deep romantic relationships. Boundaries are interesting because I think we often think about it in terms of those really close relationships, but it's everywhere all day in the way that we treat ourselves when it comes to all sorts of events and places and time. And so often we cross our own boundaries. It's like nobody's doing this to us, we're doing it to ourselves. We cross our own boundaries in all these little ways where we overgive or we hold ourselves back too much. So we have Mars in Libra. We're going to have the Sun moving into Libra. We're going to have Mercury beginning its pre-shadow in Libra on the 6th and going retrograde on the 27th in Libra. So all this energy is your opposing sign, which means this is a great time to just take a look around and notice. Where am I either letting my energy just leak everywhere because I feel I need to be the Energizer bunny battery power packed doer, giver, or where maybe are you not sharing what you really want, hiding what you really want, in order to keep up appearances or to avoid being vulnerable. Understandable impulse to want to avoid being vulnerable because it's scary. This is a wonderful time, and that theme is going to be coming up time and again. I don't want to skip over the fact, though, that before we get to Libra season, we will be in Virgo season for the first 3 weeks of this month. And this is a time to just pay attention to the details. What's working for you in your routine, in your weekly schedule? What's your dream weekly schedule? Like, if you could just relax, let yourself daydream, what would be the dream week for you? Not just a vacation, but like the life you live. What do you want that to look like? So there's some pretty serious homework going on here. However, here's the thing. I find that, when we notice, when we actually let ourselves notice where we cross our own boundaries, right? Where we say yes to something because we feel like we need to, but it feels really bad after we say, okay, I'll do it. And then we're like, oh, this is really empowering stuff, because I would recommend starting with the small boundary crossings that happen, whether that be in what you're eating for breakfast and realizing that when you eat that thing, you don't feel as good. Some people have sensitivity to eggs or to wheat or to, other random things, or just foods that feel heavy or too light. Where are you crossing your own boundaries in those little ways? And just adjusting those. 2 cards wanted to come out, Queen of Pentacles and King of Cups. Hello. I love those royals. They are very wise. Judgment. Oh, hello. I do love the Judgment card, though, actually. Very useful card. Yeah, and I find that in noticing where we're crossing our own boundaries just with ourselves, just to, because we feel we need to keep up appearances, or because we're still living in a version of ourselves that somebody told us we were as children or young adults. This is, and King of Pentacles. Okay. This is a wonderful time to really re-empower yourself, Aries, and take care of yourself. Yeah, I was realizing that, I'm not actually great at boundaries. I have to say, I think because I of my own history and how I've been kind of brought up in the world, be a good girl and be kind. I will often overgive of myself, even when that's the last thing I want to do. And it will get sneaky because I've gotten better every year of my life. And I think most people will agree that's what happens. As you age, you get so much better at your boundaries. But sometimes, I won't even realize that I'm missing a boundary because it will seem like the norm. I'll be like, this is normal. This is how it's always been. But then I'll start to kind of watch myself. I'll start to observe myself in the situation. I'll realize, like, every time I'm in that situation, when I get home or whatever, I will suddenly have, a stomach ache, or feel really overwhelmed with feelings of like guilt and paranoia, where I'm like feeling like I need to apologize to a lot of people. And that's when I'm like, I need to look at my boundaries around this scenario and what is working and what's not, because something's off. So that's what I'm saying this month. Notice where you're having physiological responses, emotional responses to things that aren't quite right. Like, you don't want to feel that way. And there is a connective tissue between what just happened and how you're feeling. This month is wonderful for that. So let's talk through this because okay, we're going to start right off with some very intuitive royals here. Now, maybe you have these people around you, and if you do, that is really good news, because these beings, these energies are very honest and in integrity, which just means that they're trustworthy in that they will tell you what they need when they need it, and they will listen to themselves and what they need, right? It's like that terrible feeling when you have a friend who they just say yes to things, even though maybe they're tired or they don't have the energy for it. And then you spend the coffee or whatever kind of paranoid, like, do you really want to be here? Are you okay? Isn't it nice when you have a friend who just says, I don't have the energy today, I'll call you tomorrow? Because you can trust them, that if they don't feel like going, they're not going to be there, right? That's how I think of Queen of Pentacles and King of Cups. They're very honest. And why are they honest, though? It's because they are both meditative, right? One is about grounding down into our devotion and into our rituals. So finding day-to-day routines that cultivate a garden of presence in ourselves, right? Slowing down, and I don't mean that in the way of not accomplishing your goals, right? Like, sometimes I feel like I offend Aries a little bit because they're like, everybody's telling me to slow down and not be myself anymore. And that's definitely not what I want. I think when I mean slow down, it's kind of this, it's not about living a slower life necessarily or doing less. It's about, in those moments of agitation or feeling like you need to do it all right away, taking a breath and getting more deliberate in those moments. And that is what Queen of Pentacles is all about. She is the garden cultivator. She's sitting here with little woodland creatures. She's like Snow White or Cinderella or something, She's meditating on the garden of the life that she wants to cultivate. And from there, taking actions that match up with it. The King of Cups is listening to his emotional integrity. So he's keeping equilibrium, even if there are seas tossing about, energies moving around, crazy events going on. There is a connection to his center point that is allowing him to know what steps he needs to take in each given moment. And both of these are very deeply connected to meditation, to inner seeking, to inner guidance, and to finding peaceful, centered actions to take. So there's a really strong theme here. And, we don't have any fire in this reading. And to be honest, September is not a fire-filled month. There's very little energy in any fire sign. So we're all getting asked to do work in a different part of ourselves and cultivate a different part of ourselves. And this month, we have a lot of outer planets retrograde. We have Mercury beginning this pre-shadow phase. It's going to be about getting in touch with our souls and being really deliberate about it. And if you try and skip that and just stay busy externally, it's going to be a much more frustrating month than if you start here. You'll notice that things are moving in the world. So just as a heads up. Now, it's really interesting here because we're getting Judgment. And this is a card of transformation. It is a card of absolution and transformation. And this is one of the most healing cards. It makes me think about Chiron being in your sign, actually, because whenever you get a Judgment energy like this, I think especially in listening to your soul and thinking about boundaries and thinking about where you cross your own boundaries and where you abandon yourself in order to keep the status quo or in order to uphold a myth of yourself that feels like important, and like if it doesn't get upheld, something bad will happen. Judgment is a time to make peace with yourself and how you've changed and to shed a skin. And it is tied to the underworld. It is tied to death and rebirth. And it's tied to forgiveness as well. And in fact, I think it's funny that it's called Judgment, because in some ways this is about releasing judgment and finding grace and forgiveness. In ourselves, most importantly, but also for situations or things in the past. I often find Judgment as a card is speaking directly to how is your self-compassion going these days? Do you have self-compassion? And in those places where you keep replaying the event and wanting to make it perfect and wanting to do it better and wanting to be better and wanting to, do everything right, do you have self-compassion for that person that you've been in all these different scenarios who was trying the best with what knowledge they had? And this card is also about putting down the heavy weight of anywhere where you aren't letting yourself grow and let go. Oh, Aries, it's like the most intense message, but the thing is, this is so important. I feel like I can learn a lot from this reading today as well. As I'm like talking, I'm like, I can take this advice. Yeah, because it's so easy to just keep putting ourselves through these high standards, these impossible standards, these impossible ways of moving through the world, and then be like, it wasn't enough. And every card this month is saying, this is a month of grace for you. This is a month of reset for you. This is a time where you can look at those boundaries and you can start to implement ones that really express your soul, and in healthy ways that don't mean that you have to build up all that Martian energy until it bursts into a crazy tornado, right? That you can actually use your Martian energy consistently every day in these little ways that are going to honor you so deeply and make space for the new. Because here's the thing. I really like this month with the equinox, with all the powerful energy moving through. There is a sense that we're getting prepared for this next season. And King of Pentacles, he's very tied to Taurus energy, but also what I think about with this guy, unlike Queen of Pentacles and King of Cups, who are very intuitive and meditative and are kind of tapped into the spiritual space of devotion and practice, King of Pentacles is about the long-term investment on the ground in the real world. And when he shows up, I think especially after a card like Judgment, which is about going to the underground and giving ourselves compassion and letting go of past versions of ourselves, letting them be at peace and be at rest. King of Pentacles is about cultivating that garden and starting to plant seeds that are going to be yielding results for you for months and months to come, and definitely for the rest of 2021. And I think whenever I see King of Pentacles show up, it's like whatever seeds you're planting in September, you may not see the results until like March, April, May, right? but you're planting them, which means you're already connected to that energy. So King of Cups King of Pentacles is speaking to a bigger vision coming in for you this month. There being some insights into the path that you're building and what you're creating next. So it's interesting to me. I think in hearing our soul and actually listening to our physical bodies and to our emotions when we're going through our day-to-day lives and adjusting in real time, or as close to real time as we can get, there is a really strong connection between doing that and actually being able to connect with your bigger picture and getting answers and getting clarity and getting forward motion on the things you want to see happen in this life. There's a really strong connection between these two things. They often kind of, I think, get talked about in these very separate orbs, but when I really think about it, when we're in integrity and we're not crossing our own boundaries all the time, we get access to our full self, not just all the shattered pieces of ourselves that we're trying to constantly hand out to the world, but the true self. And that allows us to connect with our bigger path and our bigger destiny. And so, that's the light message that I'm sending to you in September. I'm really excited to see how it plays out for Aries energy. And like I said, I feel like I'm going to be thinking about this message a lot today and in the coming weeks. I think this is a message that's going to stick with me as well. I would love to see you on Patreon. I'm going to be offering a lot of extra support for the upcoming Mercury retrograde, as well as every single week we go through all the energies and there's worksheets, and it's just a really lovely space. So I'd love to see you there. You can also find me on my Instagram at Vrba and on my website. So I'll leave all my links below so you know where to find me. And of course, I'll always be here, and I would love it if you joined this family and hit like and subscribe. And we will be talking more about this Libran energy and this mirror season energy for Aries next month. I will see you all then, and I'm sending you my love.